87% of agents don't make it 5 years. Bad onboarding is what does that. Most of those 87% did not even get their SOI database together, a contact plan together, and stay in and a system set up in their CRM to stay in front of their own people. The vast majority of that 87% never does that because they had bad onboarding and it was not a priority up front at the very beginning when they had the time. Then all they do is get 2 or 3 clients and they deem themselves far too busy for that. That is a leadership failure up front. From an onboarding process standpoint, this applies to all agents when they first start off. I think the key to onboarding processes out there, ones I've liked and disliked, after watching thousands of agents come into the business, from an onboarding standpoint, you'll see lots of different systems out there. And a standalone to-do list is not my favorite. And you'll see them, you'll hear them called different things like 100-day checklist, 30, 60, 90 checklist. So you've got 30 days, 60 days things, 90 days, you've got 100 days. And I think those are good. They're certainly better than nothing. I mean, I think those are good. They're just not great to me. So I don't want to talk them too negatively because there'll be a list of things that you should do in the first 30 days. And then, list of things you should do in the first week. And they're usually weekly. You might see some more thorough, things that are done daily. And I'm not a huge fan of that because I have found that no one does them. And when I mean no one, I mean freaking no one. I'll give pushback to people who think they have done them because someone's hopefully told all of you what you need to do that are watching this to start when you did start in real estate. And they're like, well, I did everything. I wish my agents would do everything, or I wish the agents that worked with me or I was in charge of did everything. But you didn't really do anything either because you probably went off one of those checklists. And I'll give you an example. What should definitely be on that checklist should be getting everybody together, uploaded into your CRM in your sphere of influence. And I cannot tell you how few agents do that right away. I mean, they have to be nagged for years, sometimes decades before they ever do that. But that needs to be done systematically over a period of time when an agent first onboards, because it's in that very beginning of onboarding that the agents have the most time. They're the most confused. They have no clients to service. And even if they do, it's like 1 or 2. They got all kinds of free time and they just don't know what to do other than look at a checklist. And a checklist, quite frankly, has too many decisions to be made in and of itself. It's when do I do this? Oh, I need to do these things, but how much time will they take me? I've got tons of other time to do this other stuff. Maybe I should go to this training or that training or look at all these different weird seminars that I shouldn't be looking at right now. And maybe going to this training I shouldn't be looking at right now. And all of this different stuff, when they're really the stuff they should be doing, they're not going to get to because it's just a checklist. And that's how I feel about to-do lists. They're optional. We use to-do lists as things that we know we need to get done, but they're not that important to us because we won't even commit to when we're going to do them. We're just going to put them on a shelf so we don't forget them someday. And we usually forget where that list was on the shelf, or it just kind of keeps growing at the bottom longer and longer with other things that you deem to be more important later. That's why I hate to-do lists. They're an excuse when you don't want to do it right now. Because if you wanted to do it right now, you would commit to when you're going to do it and put it in your calendar. A calendar is a by when list. It's actionable. So for new agents, don't use a to-do list. I mean, for life, don't use a to-do list. If you're going to use a to-do list, it's very short term and it needs to go into a calendar if you're going to actually do those items, or at least have it calendared when to look at that to-do list, which I do with some long-term stuff personally. But otherwise, everything needs to go in your calendar. And when you onboard agents, or when you are an agent onboarding, we need to use an onboarding calendar, okay? An onboarding calendar, that's first and foremost, right? And that's crucial. So what I'd like to show you is what a good onboarding calendar looks like. Could you imagine onboarding like this when you first got in the business? Here's what an onboarding calendar looks like, right? Okay. So this is a 2-week calendar and it's just on one page. So by no means should it, are you limited to this? Typically you would, print 2, 3, or 4 of these. If you want to go out 2 months, that would be 4 of these. That's 8 weeks. If you wanted to have a 90-day or a 3-month calendar, then, you would print 6 of these. And basically, look at this. I mean, people are showing up at 8:30 like it's a normal job. And they might use our welcome checklist, different things like your logins and your, getting a bunch of administrative stuff done. But then look, every morning at 8:30, first thing they're doing is, across the board is they're getting their SOI contacts added in the CRM. And look at this, they're actually prospecting right away. They're starting to reach out and let people know they're in the business. Freaking first day on the job. First day on the job, they're spending time every single morning reaching out and letting people know they're in the business, right? Maybe they're going to attend some team meetings. You can see we've got a couple scheduled at 10 a.m. on day 3. And of course, again, the next week, same time, same day. Then they might do some training videos, maybe learning how to use their CRM first and foremost right off the bat. Then they could be going through some of my courses, like my Sphere of Influence course. So they're learning how to build their SOI as they're adding contacts to it, as they're making contacts. They go to lunch, come back, then we're starting to do some field work, right? We put it on them to schedule time with the admin staff, schedule time to shadow a buyer consultation with somebody else in the organization. And we put it on them to schedule these. Maybe they attend an MLS system. Then they take some more video learning, maybe back to my Sphere of Influence class. Maybe they get into my online prospecting class. It just depends what your organization, does. It could be my farming class, my agent mindset class. I'm just showing, here's here's our DISC class. And this is an editable form, which you can download here. And we'll give it to them. And you can adjust it any way you want. It's a Microsoft Word document to put any of my online courses or any courses you want or any local courses from, it could be a contracts class from your local association or your local office, anything here. But the whole idea is, for the most part, this is self-managed. I mean, yes, they're going to hold your weekly sales meeting. And yes, you're going to meet with them at 10:30 each Friday. If you're in charge of holding them accountable, and that's really just a meeting to make sure they're actually getting through all this and that they're attending everything. Otherwise, it's on them to schedule the shadowing appointments so that they can shadow and follow people around. And it's on them to watch the videos, and it's on them to do the contacts. So this creates a very self-managed individual, where that individual is going to be held responsible to do their own training with the systems and tools and personnel you've already provided to them. So it shouldn't take a lot of time to train a new agent. All you're really doing is inviting them to attend the things you've got going anyways. And you're meeting with them once a week on Friday. I put it 10:30 here. I like it at the end of the week, but it's up to you whenever your schedule is free to meet with them, to make sure they're getting through it. So it doesn't actually take a lot of additional time for the person that's the trainer, but we do need to meet with them on a weekly basis to hold them accountable. And here's the key. I know you're looking at this like saying, wow, a new agent, I'd never do all that. Well, believe it or not, a new licensee or someone relatively new in the business or someone who's really struggling, let's just start new in the business. Believe it or not, when an agent is new in the business, they expect this type of training. That's what, if you get a job in the real world, this is the type of schedule you have. You show up at 8:30. I've got them going home at 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock on this thing. They're going home at 2, 3. If they don't have any property to show, go home. If they don't have property to list, go home. I don't care. They've done all their work. I've got them going home early. Most, you go get a job at Google or any other normal, employment, you're going to show up all day and train for a couple weeks minimum. So maybe on weeks 3 and 4, you start scaling this back and have them watching less videos a day. Keep the prospecting in there, keep the lead gen in there in the morning, but you dial it back to just 1 extra video a day because they've already taken it. So we can stretch it out and just slowly wean them off the long days. Then ultimately, they're going to be just at lead gen every single morning. And then we can probably stop the onboarding. But that's how I would customize these. And the whole point is, this is what they expect when they're brand new. This is why I was saying, an agent that doesn't get this type of training after 6 months, they are completely spoiled and ruined, because then they've talked to enough other agents. And, for the first 6 months, they're showing up every day, treating it like a job. But after 6 months of no guidance or tight mentoring like this, they will get really bad habits and tell themselves they can work from home and only show up at the office once or twice. And they wonder why they fail because they don't treat it like a job. They tell themselves and their friends and their family and their wives and their kids that they're working. They're not. They're not showing up. They're not doing the work. And that starts with leadership, guys. If you set those habits where they show up every day and do this work, they will develop those habits. So if you want your organization to have agents that put forth that type of effort, start them off that way before they too get spoiled and their careers get ruined because we don't have an adequate onboarding process. So it's very important we have a buy-when so they know what they should be doing at all times. Otherwise, if there's big gaps and there's just a to-do list alone, because I like to-do lists, don't get me wrong, we have one, we'll cover it. But all by itself, that lets crazy town upstairs take over. Then it's like, well, what do I do right now? And then we start making really poor decisions. And we start doing things that, might remotely be beneficial sometime or at some point. So we tell ourselves, and it's less painful than watching a video or lead generating or working on a CRM. So we make that decision. And next thing you know, we keep making that decision and then we never get our database updated. We never watch those training videos. We never do anything. Now I'm kind of preaching to the choir right now because you're watching this, so you're dedicated to your growth, which is great. But most agents are not. Most agents will quit over time or they'll never do it. So we've got to hold them accountable. And we do that by giving them giving them a calendar, giving them buy-when dates for everything they need to get done. And then over time, every week we meet with them and hold them accountable to it over time. Then, at the end of, I do 100 days, not 90 days. And I have a first quarter checklist that once that's over, then they're kind of off on their own. And hopefully those habits have been set. How you hold up standards and expectations with them, coming in the office and lead generating, that varies from organization to organization. But the point of the matter is, when we onboard someone, there's got to be a buy-when involved with that onboarding process. Our agent onboarding calendar has been crucial to the success of our agents and teams. Don't just leave it loose. Don't leave yourself out there. And if you yourself are onboarding, boy, do not leave a calendar blank. If you really want to be productive and bridge that crucial gap for a new agent. Those first, 6 months in the business are everything. You have got to get business up and under contract while still learning everything you need to know to handle clients and still lead generating for new business right away. Because that's how 33% of agents fail in the first year. They don't make it past the first year because they don't make enough money. So we've got to be really tight with our calendar right away, and they've got to do everything at once. So they don't really have time to screw around and make bad decisions with time. They expect you to know as the leader. So you got to tell them, here's what you need to do. Don't think about it. Go. Now do this. Otherwise, it's just too risky with someone's career and their future. I can't tell you why that 33% of agents don't make it every year. It's so much because of bad onboarding. So much of that blame is on their leaders. I cannot tell you that. Because I'll tell you, when people follow this process, we have much better numbers of success. It's definitely not 1 out of every 3 people don't make it a year. That's for sure. So that's the crucial part of the success. Okay. That's the crucial part. And I guess 87%, according to Inman News, 87% of agents don't make it 5 years. A lot of that's just because they could last a little bit longer with below average income until they got tired of below average income. Bad onboarding is what does that. Most of those 87% did not even get their SOI database together, a contact plan together, and a system set up in their CRM to stay in front of their own people. The vast majority of that 87% never does that because they had bad onboarding and it was not a priority up front at the very beginning when they had the time. Then all they do is get 2 or 3 clients, and they deem themselves far too busy for that. That is a leadership failure up front.